Are we going to see yet another one of these Lord of the Rings cards break through in Legacy? Let's find out. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today we are going to be playing some Reanimator. The Innistrad Revenue Service, the IRS, has asked me to do this one, and Sauron the Dark Lord is going to be one of our reanimation targets today. It's a little bit of a weird one. It has Ward, sacrifice an artifact, specifically a legendary artifact or a legendary creature, which in most normal circumstances in Legacy, that basically means that this thing has Shroud. Now, could you sacrifice a Mox Opal or a copy of the One Ring? Yes, absolutely. Is that traditionally going to happen? No, probably not. The idea is that this is a hard-to-answer creature that produces extra bodies. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, you get to amass Orcs 1, and we know from Orcish Bowmasters that those Orcs can add up relatively quickly. Now, whenever an army you control deals combat damage to a player, the ring tempts you. And when the ring tempts you, you can discard your hand. If you do, draw 4 cards. Now, I want you to think about Reanimator gameplay. There's a decent amount of time where you get into kind of this mid to late game situation and you have a handful of creatures stuck in your hand, but you can't quite get them into graveyard, you don't have a Faithless Looting or whatever. This final ability can be a way to put creatures into the graveyard while refueling you. And it's interesting. We'll see whether or not it's actually good enough today. This is one of those cards where it goes on the thumbnail. Whether or not we actually entomb for it, hard to say, but it's situationally interesting. Now, today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com as well as Cool Stuff Inc. And if you need paper magic cards, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your order. Now, this specific Reanimator deck list is highly diversified in its creature suite. So, for a while in Legacy, a very long while, Griselbrand was damn near the best thing that you could just always go and get off of, your Entomb. It's the thing that you wanted to most frequently put into play on turn 1. And now things have changed a little bit. Archon of Cruelty is great interaction for opposing creature decks. That also gives you card advantage. Atraxa almost always allows you to try to reanimate another thing the following turn, sometimes even the same turn, without necessarily costing you life. And this deck also has some old favorites that have a bit fallen out of favor, like Iona to lock opponents out of the game, Sire of Insanity to give double middle fingers to whatever deck your opponent is playing, and the new Sauron the Dark Lord. Otherwise, everything from this column over is basically entirely stock and not really exciting at all. If you take a look at the mana base here, we do have an Underground Sea in the mana base so that we can go and cast sideboard show and tells as a way to completely juke graveyard hate. You'll notice that this build does not have as many generic answers to things like Leyline of the Void. This deck is kind of on the man plan that you used to see from decks like Tinfins that also relied on the graveyard, where in game 2 you can board out some amount of your just normal reanimation package to just play things that attack, or things that otherwise might be able to just singularly win the game on its own, or otherwise dodge the graveyard entirely. We're going to leave our opponents with a little bit of a guessing game in terms of what they need to be dealing with for the post-sideboard games. I'm not going to change it, because I think changing it would involve cutting one of the pieces of spice. But generally speaking, I think a Reanimator deck is never, ever, ever supposed to go above 60 cards, because Entomb is the best card in your deck, and it's not close, and you want to maximize your percentage chance of having Entomb in the opener. And I think getting rid of one card comes at the cost of cutting one of these things, and I'm just going to go ahead and play the deck list as it was submitted, rather than get rid of the fun. Alright, let's battle. Okay, I have a turn 1 Griselbrand if I want to lose to Force of Will. My opponent tends to play blue decks, so I don't think I'm going to do that. Let's Grief. That way I have the possibility of reanimating Grief on the off chance that I want to do that. Daze, Delver, Questing Druid. I just play around Daze on turn 2. I'll take your Delver, get the early pressure off of me. Let's go Badlands, Faithless Looting. Oh, well, we go now. Discard Griselbrand and Faithless Looting, Lotus Petal, reanimate on a Griselbrand. 1 draw 7 should be fine. It gives me a chance to dump another fatty into the graveyard, or otherwise do something that looks like this. Okay, yeah, my opponent's done with me. Alright, Magic is easy. Alright, so we are expecting counter magic to be the primary way that my opponent interacts with me. I don't have a lot of heuristics stored up for how I am supposed to approach this matchup. Like, I am not a regular Reanimator player. I imagine I don't need to go for the cute ones here. I imagine that almost always I want one of these. How is this in this matchup? Okay. A 7/6 might just lose to a Questing Dryad, though. What do? Do I, like, trim this a little bit? I am unsure how I want to board. Like, can I go down this many things? Maybe I need to go up 1 fatty if I'm going to play Show and Tell. Like, keep a 7/7 flyer. This goes down 4 ways to get things out of the graveyard, but goes up 4 of these. And this is looking to play a slower game. Oh, I'm a 61 card deck. Right. Keep 1 extra discard spell. Don't take my sideboarding as gospel here. I have not played Reanimator since they shift. Well, pretty hard to throw that back. It can attempt to do the thing very quickly, although I won't. Like, I'm going to slow roll this game and play around Daze since I have so many lands. What's my basic count like here? 2 basic swamps. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I think we're just chilling. Sure. And now I probably respond to that and attempt to entomb. Opponent says no, pitching a Hydroblast. Hydroblast is a little narrow. Like, I get it, because Faithless Looting is a very, very, very important card. But I'm slightly surprised. Not that surprised, but slightly. There's 3 card types in graveyard now. That'll be the 4th. We don't mind taking a little bit of damage. I'm not going to let this entomb be dazable. There's Force of Negation to think about for, like, casting it on my opponent's turn. But I think I'm okay casting it right now. There is a Force of Negation. Force of Will would have gotten it anyway. And I think we're chilling. We're looking to draw Entomb, Faithless Looting. We're not actually all that far away from just hard casting a Griselbrand with double Dark Ritual here. Grief is fine. I maybe just fire off a Dark Ritual here to play Grief around Daze. Let's see what's going on over there. Questing Druid and Force of Negation. I could take Questing Druid and attempt to animate Dead It and get the Force of Negation out of my opponent's hand as well, potentially. Because, like, I can just fire off Dark Rituals and shit to grow this. Do I like that? It's a little weird. I think so. Alright, let's fetch. Grab the Underground Sea. I'm just going to double check it is -0. Yep. I think this ends up being better than trying to reanimate that. It's possible that this doesn't end up scaling as much as I want it to. But all it takes is one Faithless Looting for this to kind of go wild. Take 3 in the air, go to 9. Am punished by Entomb as my draw, which would have been much better with the Animate Dead. But my opponent would have 2 more random cards with whatever the other side of this is. Seek the Beast. Yep. So we just cast a Dark Ritual for a +1/+1 counter. Bash in for 5. We'll hold the land in case we draw Faithless Looting. Goal is to shift into being the aggressor here, which we're not far away from being, but we might not quite get there. So I'm dead to a Lightning Bolt, and I'm about 1 turn cycle off from out aggroing my opponent. I'm at 3. Yeah. And we drew 3 bricks. So we're 1 turn cycle short of becoming the aggressor here. GG. For the game that I'm on the play, I could just, like, avoid the show and tells and just attempt to play faster again, which I don't think I hate. The show and tells become exhumes again. How do I feel about the random creatures? They're conceptually fine. But if I want to try to go off turn 1, I really need both unmasks, I think. Maybe I'll keep the Bowmasters. They're just generically good versus blue decks and go largely back to the game 1 configuration. Alright. Grief. Pitching unmask. Then I've got everything that I need from there. I may be actually Grief pitching Griselbrand in case my opponent has multiple pieces of hate and I can't actually go off on turn 1. Yeah, I think I like that. So Grief pitching Griselbrand. Force of Will pitching a Delver. I think I go for it. We'll just do the basic swamp. No Fear, cast Entomb. Which one of these do I in theory want on turn 1? Probably Griselbrand. Alright, show me another piece of interaction. They did. Alright, I am left with a single unmask. I'm in a bad situation. Oh, do you have the turn 1 threat as well after all of that? Oh, rough. Okay. So now the fact that I have very few secondary threats in, like I don't have the show and tells in for this game, matters a lot. I'm punished for not having gotten Badlands on 1 to play around Wasteland. Sure. Note that I'm going to be saving this stuff to probably bin to a Faithless Looting since my situation is so bad. I can take some chip damage here. Yep. I don't think it's a bad thing to put them to the test on turn 1 like that. Like, it's not always going to work out, but I win every time that it does. Like, I could have gone with something like a less committal Reanimate on Grief that turn and play more conservatively. I don't really know that I'm supposed to. Alright. Life's looking bad. At some point, I will start thinking about using Unmask. Oof. Don't know that we're going to beat a counterbalance, because 1 is just going to be one of the easiest things for them to flip. Yikes. I mean, Orcish Bowmasters is still an out to this, I suppose. Nope. Death by 1,000 little needles. At this point, I guess I will unmask my opponent once, just mostly so I don't just discard a card. Alright, no on the counterbalance. Yikes. Guess I'm going to take the Brainstorm here. So the counterbalance is less likely to get my future stuff. But I think just like staring down a wall of counterspells, Cage, Counterbalance, and what is now a 3/3 and isn't answered by Orcish Bowmasters anymore, I think I'm just comfortable throwing in the towel. GG's. So kind of interestingly there, like, I switched my plan to I would like to go fast and go under my opponent's stuff this game. And like I did successfully attempt that game plan. It just didn't work. Like in order for my opponent to beat me there, they need force plus blue card or equivalent to stop grief, and then either another force or blue card or surgical extraction specifically on a mull to 6. I think I'm fine for putting them to the test there. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and I personally keep all of my deck lists for every format on this site. I love that I can go and sort them by types and tags if I need to. There's a lot of different viewing options. It can give you some math about your mana symbol, your curve, and you can even playtest and do sample opening hands with it. Check this site out if you haven't before. It's awesome. All right. I have so many different draws that get me to greatness that I'm thinking about keeping this hand. Like, a red source, I think, makes this hand good enough. A land makes this hand good enough, just generically speaking, because I can go Entomb into one of these. Lotus Petals are also hits. I think I'm going to try to keep this one. Like, I'm mulligan hungry. Like, I like my hands to have a good plan, but, like, this is so close to great. Like, Reanimate is great, Land is great, Lotus Petal is great. I think I'm happy enough with this. And I get Grief to kind of bridge. So even if I stumble for a turn or two, it's okay. Inventor's Fair. Okay. My opponent could do something extremely unfair on turn 1 with double LED. Looks like we've lucked out, though. Okay. Grief first, before even doing a land drop, maybe. I think junking the Exhume. Hopefully take my opponent's one piece of action. Success. Now, do I need to loot? Not really. I'll just Entomb end of turn into Animate Dead. We're looking to dodge my opponent top decking Echo of Eons in particular. All right. Because we just want to avoid the shuffle effect. I wonder if there's any super weird Inventor Fair lines that are possible here. Ooh, that's a decent top deck, I suppose. All right. Fetch. Get bad lands. We'll Entomb. Which one of these is the best here? Archon of Cruelty is the best against the Urza Saga tokens. I think I just take a Griselbrand and attempt to make 2 creatures on my next turn, though. Alright. Bam. Animate Dead, targeting the Griselbrand. And this doesn't cost me life, so I can run pretty deep with Griselbrand, looking for, like, Lotus Petals. Let's go a little deeper, looking for Lotus Petal. Damn, whiffed on Lotus Petal. Okay. So let's Grief. Pitching a Thoughtseize. Oh, right, it was just those. I'll discard a bunch of stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Throw one of those in there. Throw one of those in there. Throw one of those in there. Okay, so we've got some Urza Saga tokens over there. I can produce an Archon of Cruelty on my turn to help out with that. And this is all not so bad. Oh, hey, it is an Urza's Workshop actually tapping for 2 mana. Okay, are we seeing a weird Inventor's Fair line? My opponent just shut off Metalcraft. I guess they'll turn it back on. Okay. The One Ring. Sure. How does this card read? Target opponent. Okay. Sauron, interesting here. The Animate Dead is a nice draw. I think since I've got like some Dark Rituals and stuff, I'm just going to go ahead and loot first. Sure, Unmask's less important here. Second Dark Ritual doesn't seem necessary. So I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess I can just as easily just discard another land. Second Dark Ritual let me hardcast Grief as well. Yes. I could get rid of Lotus Petal, play land, Dark Rid up to 4 mana, Dark Rid up to 6 mana. Yeah, that's fine. So Dark Red, Dark Rit, Animate Dead. I know this targets, but I think I still want the Archon. I could just get Atraxa first and then probably end up with Archon as well. Looking at 10 cards is a lot of cards. Not the best. So I will take a Reacher, an instant, a sorcery, an artifact, a land, play a Lotus Petal. We'll use that to go a little deeper with Faithless Looting here. Or do I just cast Sire of Insanity? Nah, I'd rather have more looks at getting Archon of Cruelty into play. Sire of Insanity is largely just a negative for me right now. Get rid of Unmask and Entomb. Go up to 4 mana and just cast the Grief. Its trigger isn't going to do anything. So my opponent will draw a card end of turn with the One Ring. And then we'll see what they can put together on their own turn. Note that Sire of Insanity doesn't really stop that extra card from the One Ring. Alright, opponent loses a life for the ring. If they make their construct. Okay, they're just drawing some cards now. Before the search, I guess they're trying to inform their search to see kind of what's going on. Paradox Engine is scary. My opponent could go ham and kill me from this board. Sure. Alright, we've seen this kind of thing happen plenty of times on the channel. This takes a while. I'm going to fast forward to the relevant plays. Alright, my opponent cast a bunch of monoliths and untapped them a bunch of times to find Karn. Karn can now minus for a walking ballista and kill me. And I won't make my opponent click through that. They have a demonstrated kill here. So kind of unfortunately, Sire of Insanity and Iona are supposed to be the ways that in game 1 you can just beat an opposing combo deck by putting a creature into play. But this is a colorless combo deck, so Iona doesn't work. And Sire of Insanity doesn't work because my opponent was looking to draw cards with the One Ring in a way that just completely dodged this effect. So yeah, that was rough. So I will probably board in creatures and wear tears. I don't know, like, the thing that I want to destroy the most is the One Ring, and wear tear doesn't answer that. I might need this, like, at least a couple copies of this as answers to something like Ensnaring Bridge. I don't think I'm interested in you or you here. I play, like, maybe I play all of them. It's just, like, so bad for me to take 2 mana to destroy 1 artifact most of the time. I might just need it as outs. I don't know. Sheoldred is a decent way to beat an Ensnaring Bridge. Generally speaking, I don't think discard is the best versus my opponent. I think I'm going to go down Unmasks and Thoughtseize. And if I go down like 1 Grief or 1 Exhume or something, I could probably call that good. Alright, since I am on the play, I can't just go to discard and just discard this. I would probably keep this on the draw. Okay, so this goes Lotus Petal, Faithless Looting, gets 2 looks at a creature. If I miss, I just play a Dauthi Voidwalker on turn 1 and start attacking. I think this is acceptable for a 6, and I just pitch Dark Ritual. Alright, let's see how it goes. I don't have the highest density of creatures currently. There's a Griselbrand in the yard for later, though. Sounds good. So that constant threat is there while I am just clocking my opponent with Dauthi. So we'll see how quickly my opponent can do something broken, and we'll see how well I top deck. Sure. Alright, Metalcraft is on. 4-drop could come down on turn 1. It is a Karn. That could be Ensnaring Bridge on turn 1. Okay, Karn is just plussing. That is reasonable. We will start pressuring this Karn, although it is going to stay out of the range of being just immediately killed. Like, my opponent can plus to 4 if they want to keep it alive again, although I imagine they just -2 it this turn. We'll see, though. Alright. Is this offensive or defensive? Alright, they are going for the bridge. Ooh, and a key can allow them to dump their hand out relatively well. Sure. Alright. So, this is a little late here. Let's try to find a wear tear, though. Did not immediately succeed. I can end of my opponent's turn in Tomb for Atraxa, and then exhume it to get 10 looks at wear tear. That seems pretty reasonable to me. I still think I will grief my opponent here. Double Workshop. We'll do a land drop. Go ahead and fetch a land out of my deck so I don't draw it later. We'll have my opponent think about show and tell. Don't need to exhume grief right now. Yep. Yeah, it's sort of unfortunate. Sure. That was my opponent's draw. Okay. Alright. Entomb. Sheoldred interesting at all? I don't think so. I think I just take the Atraxa for 10 looks. I think my opponent's whole game falls apart if I hit the wear tear here. And this is a quarter of my library that I'm going to look at. Alright. Get Atraxa. Alright, hit 1. So instant, sorcery, enchantment, artifact, creature. Alright, there's a petal. Go ahead and fetch. Pick up a land. Cast wear tear on Ensnaring Bridge. Get out. Notably, this goes under Dauthi Voidwalker, which I guess is simultaneously a good and bad thing, because it's in exile for if my opponent rips another Karn. So that kills Karn. This attacks you. Sure. Opponent's at 11, facing down lethal. I know my opponent's 1 card. I don't think I need to do anything else here. Alright, cool. I don't think I'm going to make any major changes. The discard spells become slightly more attractive on the draw in case my opponent can't vomit their 4-drop into play on turn 1. Like maybe Dauthi Voidwalker is just worse on the draw. And I just want a little bit more interaction. I'll pick Grief, as that can still just be reanimated. This hand is probably going to be a keep. I can play a Bowmasters on turn 1 or Entomb Reanimate on turn 1. I've got Grief backup for that, kind of either direction that I choose to take it. And this is just fully, does my opponent do something more broken than what I'm doing on turn 1? I don't care about the ley line. Sure. Yeah, so now I will just play Orcish Bowmasters. Probably on turn 1. Probably Grief, pitching Archon. Just confirm Show and Tell is not in my deck right now. Yep. Yeah, so let's... Yeah, Grief, pitch Reanimate. There's... Like, I have 2 Reanimates anyway. Let's try to take a relevant card from my opponent's hand. 2 Karns. Taking one of those doesn't accomplish a much. I'm going to take a Manifold Key. Alright. Yeah. Fetch, Badlands. Rubland? Or where specifically? No, I think I take Badlands still. I'm just going to sorcery speed this while I know that nothing happens to it. I've got 2 damage a turn. I have some pressure for Karn. But I have a handful of dead cards, unfortunately. Leyline was something we really didn't want to see. But, you know, here's to hoping that my opponent's hand doesn't actually accomplish anything. And I think I'm going to marginally increase my chances of drawing relevant cards. I don't think I'm going to go in Tomb Deep, because if I draw Wear Tear and get rid of that Leyline, I still want to have A in Tomb. Now that that gets Karn. Sure. Yeah, I like that line. Now I'll use one of the Entombs to pull a dead card out of the deck. Just pull another Entomb out of the deck so we don't keep drawing those. Animate dead. I don't have a good attack here. We're chilling. I think my opponent's Karns are going to take over this game now. Like, they can use one to get, like, a 1-ring. Sure. Opponent doesn't have Metalcraft yet. Sure. They might just go after my lands, honestly. Yeah. So that turns on Metalcraft, so these produce more mana. So this liquid metal coating is effectively going to function as Rishadan Fort in this turn cycle. Is what I was going to say. I'm just going to cast a Faithless Looting right now in case my opponent gets cheeky mid-combat. Yeah, I float a black mana here. You were supposed to do that in upkeep. Grief? Guess there's some timelines where I do reanimate that. Yeah, the Leyline was a beating here. Can attack Karn for 2. I can grief my opponent here. I think I will. I know at the very least there's another Karn there that I could take. Sure. That's a little frustrating. So my opponent, liquid metal coatings, Karn pluses, blows up a land, and then plays a Karn with higher loyalty. Oh, okay. Yeah, they'll do the whole untap that once or twice. All right, there's the Karn. So they're going to untap the coating and then blow up this land as well. And now I'm just left on fumes. I think at this point I'm willing to throw in the towel. So my hand lined up very poorly versus my opponent's. My opponent had Graveyard Hate when I could combo off. They also had Karns when I was on the anti-card draw hand. And they had redundant Karns so that the discard that I have didn't go well. So, like, I had 3 different checkboxes where, like, if one of those boxes isn't checked, I think I have a reasonable game. But not this time. Okay, I have no lands. This is an easy mulligan. I could cast a Grief and a Thoughtseize on turn 1. Lotus Petal, Dark Rit is 5 mana. So, like, this is a 6-card hand that does this. It leaves me with no lands. It leaves me with no black backup plans. That's like, is a Grief going to go all the way? I don't think so. Marsh Flats, Dark Ritual, Thoughtseize myself, take a creature, animate dead. I'm on 5 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4. One of these 2 creatures. Yes. Now, Reaplecheap sometimes plays mono black decks. If my opponent starts with a Leyline, so be it. This one always goes back, and then it's like, do I take the called shot at mono black? I think I take the called shot at mono black. Please don't Leyline me. Oh, okay. All right. Batch. I'm going to do a basic. Womp. Dark Ritual. Thoughtseize. Target myself. Iona. Animate dead. Black? We're going to go black. We'll see if Reaplecheap is just on something else. What the fuck is this? Okay. Why are we playing that Reaplecheap? What are you doing over there? Is this a 5th Tundra? Is this a weird Life from the Loam thing? What are you doing? Okay. Is there a way to make all the cyclers free? Unfortunately, Iona is a 4-turn clock. Off Animate Dead, like 7, 14, 21 versus 6, 12, 18, 24. It's a very relevant difference. Okay. And anything could happen here. Okay. So that can return the Iona to my hand. Sure. That's very strong considering that Thalia is going to tax me out of playing other stuff. These draws, though. Notably, I never would have named blue off my Iona. Like, if I didn't know a lot of my opponent's play patterns, I would have just named white for removal purposes. And then this still would have gotten me. But why irrigated farmland? Okay, sure. Like, is this just like blue-white humans and it's the 5th Tundra? Okay, yeah. I mean, it looks like it. I'm gonna die very quickly. Like, this is a 2-turn clock. If I don't draw a land here, I think I have no outs. Yeah. We're dead. GG's. This is somewhat likely to be a Caracas deck, right? That's not great for me. I think Sauron the Dark Lord goes out. I think Iona is still probably fine. If my opponent's playing Thalia, it's less likely that they're playing counterspells. I don't know whether or not they're going to play Leylines. This is probably a brew. And my opponent has plenty of legendary creatures to sack to this as well. I think I want the show and tells in here in some capacity. I don't know if I want to be on the man plan. Bowmasters can ping some of the hate bears. Sheoldred just gets bounced. Alright, I need 3 cuts if I'm going to do this. Probably exhumes. Couple exhumes. This has no mana. This has no action. This is 5. So, Grief, pitch some black card. Reanimate Grief, keep Thoughtseize as follow-up. Man, I hate this. That goes back. I want to pitch Unmask to Grief. Do I just keep Thoughtseize over Animate Dead? Maybe I keep Thoughtseize over Animate Dead. Alright. Grief, pitch Unmask. Let's see if we can punch a hole in this. Oh, come on! Double surgical extraction means that I can't take both. God damn it. And like, if I reanimate my opponent's things, the Aether Channeler bounce it. I get wastelanded off my Badlands. Alright, next round. Next round. I feel like a lot of my opening hands have been just short of greatness. So we have Entomb and Animate Dead. We don't have a second land. I'm weak to Wasteland. I'm okay versus a single piece of interaction. I don't have red for Faithless Looting. I think on the play I try to leverage better and just go for a turn 1. My Entomb is very valuable here, to the point where the hand doesn't do anything if it gets countered. That said, I think I'm going to keep it. I think I keep it and do an upkeep Entomb before cards like Daze are live, and this plays around Force of Negation specifically. Let's go Griselbrand. Note that this can be punished by an opposing Reanimate. Sure. Okay, there's a Spirit Guide. Okay, that's not a problem. Like, is it slightly annoying? Yes, absolutely. But, like, we just make a Griselbrand. That's pretty good for our 1 spell for turn. We're probably playing against a red-white initiative deck. We're hoping to dodge Solitude or other white exile-based removal. Kappa. So I can draw 7, because I'm going to gain the 7 right back. I think being at 11 is okay. This has a decent chance of throwing another creature into my graveyard. Not this time, though. We will discard a couple of lands. Don't really have time for Thoughtseize with this. I can Animate Dead a Solitude. Like, this is fine. Yeah. So let's go Animate Dead on Solitude. That gets the Archon out of play. With the Archon out of play and no cards in my opponent's graveyard, I get to do hot girl things. So we will Entomb. Are we done? Yeah, okay, my opponent has just conceded. Yep. Alright, so we are playing against red-white initiative. we need to be thinking about Leyline of the Void. I don't think the man plan is super great. I need to think about how much of this stuff I want to board in. I think I'm boarding in these 7. A decent amount of the time, if my opponent leylines me, I just reanimate the fucking initiative creature and we're good. Maybe I don't go too crazy with sideboarding then. Like, my opponent's creatures are very good on average. Like, maybe we go exhumes out for show and tell so that I do have that way to dodge leyline. Is this better than Wear Tear? Wear Tear is a much lower mana commitment and can also hit things like Chalice of the Void or other random things that my opponent could be playing. Show and tell actually might be a little scary. Keep 1 exhume? Keep 1 exhume? Question mark. So this hand could, on turn 1, go to hand size, discard, and then reanimate on turn 2. I don't know that that plan is actually good, because it's, like, if my opponent leylines me, my hand does literal nothing. This one also does nothing if my opponent leylines me, but it does the thing on turn 1 instead of turn 2. I think this is fine. This is not black, so we'll throw it back into the deck if we get leylined. Did not get leylined. Cavern on Human and pass? Sure. Because of Archon of Emeria, I probably preemptively fetch. Bam. 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 Get the white. Maybe you don't need the white anymore. Get basic then. No, I want the basic for later. Alright. Let's entomb. I probably want something that gives ETB value, in case my opponent has kept a Solitude or something as their measure. I think I'm going to eat like a fairy. Oh, no. Okay, we just did the thing. Cool. So, land, instant, sorcery, creature, enchantment, done, grief, pitching Griselbrand now. Okay. My opponent did not Solitude in response. They also... Okay. I think my opponent played that one poorly. Like, I know it was only 1 turn, and now I'm only seeing 4 of their 6 cards for some reason. I thought they had a plateau here. They had a plateau there. They play plateau. They have Path and Solitude up for opposing creatures. Yeah, IDK. Okay, so I don't think I keep this one. I have 1 temporary mana. I can get a Griselbrand into graveyard, and I have ways to get it out, but I think things have to go pretty well for me to do that on turn 1. On 6, I keep this. The Unmask can probably go back. Alright, my opponent is a fan of the channel and has let me know that they're new to Magic Online, so if something looks like an obvious misclick, it's someone learning the client. Alright. Good old Delver O Secrets. Sure. So what my opponent sees could be potentially a very big deal here. Alright, they've seen Animate Dead. They know what's up. They'll probably Grief, Pitch, and Animate Dead after playing my land drop, but before fetching. Because I'll know whether or not something like Wasteland is a concern. Alright, let's take some counter spells, shall we, folks? Ponder, Questing Druid. The coast is clear right now. I'm going to get rid of the Questing Druid, I think. No, maybe I don't let my opponent ponder on their turn twice. Okay. So I think I am going to now not give up the Lotus Petal and get a wastelandable land because Animate Dead is a go next turn. Nice. Okay. So pitch Archon and Exhume. I have double Animate Dead. My opponent gets Draw Step plus Ponder to find a way to stop the Animate Dead that they already know about. Delver does not flip. Alright, there's Misty, which we knew about. Dragon Rage Channeler was the draw for turn, and now they are going to ponder. So they get a handful of looks at a counterspell here, and they put a card on top. So that's presumably a Daze? I know there are 2 cards. Daze is the only thing that it makes sense that you would put on top there. Looks like my opponent accidentally skipped through an attack step there. So am I casting the Animate Dead right now anyway? Like, as soon as I hit a land, I just try again, and I just trade Animate Dead for Daze now. That seems fine. Alright, show me your Daze. Oh. Well, what the fuck do you keep on top? Is this going to be like a Brazen Borrower? I could accept that it could be a Brazen Borrower. Alright, this is gone. Like, Brazen Borrower is not embarrassing. Oh no. Do I block? I don't think I block and turn Lightning Bolt into a live card. You can have 3 points of damage. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. What does my opponent want here? Like a Murktide Regent, I guess, would be pretty legit. Just 3rd land drop, Murktide. Wasteland is fine, but is not advancing your plan meaningfully versus the Archon. And this is just worth so many cards. Each turn cycle it's alive. Like, that's 1 from play, 1 from their hand, and I draw a card. Yeah. If there were other options other than Wasteland, I don't know that Wasteland was correct. Double Lightning Bolt could do it here. Otherwise, Land Brazen Borrower could do it. Okay. So I took a minute to just kind of look at some MTG Goldfish lists for this deck, because I haven't been paying attention to what Graveyard Hate is in it. There could be a mix of Surgical Extraction and Grafdigger's Cage, in addition to just the normal counterspells. So I think I like the idea of having a man plan here, and just going down on some amount of discard. I don't believe we have ever successfully show and telled in this league. Well, I have no protection, but I can swamp Dark Ritual, Thoughtseize myself, Animate Dead, playing around Daze. It's probably worth keeping. This is also a hand where I straight up might just go to discard so that I can use the Thoughtseize as Richard Garfield intended. Yeah, I think I just go to discard. Just discard Atraxa to hand size. Thinking with portals. And we'll see if my opponent presents a threat this turn or what. Soul Guide Lantern's rough. Because that one can also stop me from just doing the same thing with Sire of Insanity. Okay. My thoughts using my opponent. What am I doing here? I think I'm going to wait a turn. Soul Guide's brutal. Like, that's the sort of card where if I had gone for it, I would have been rewarded. We'll see. I'm by no means out of this yet, and I can play very patiently until my opponent puts 3 power into play. And this, unfortunately, does not require any mana being held up to do its thing. Sure. Okay, cool. No clock yet. I also might just fucking cast a Sire of Insanity. Let's do this. Do a regular old Thoughtseize here. Get a feel for what my opponent is doing. A Veil of Summer me? Do I Orcish Bowmasters in response to that? Like Dark Ritual, Orcish Bowmasters? And just, like, work on growing a token? My opponent might have boarded Lightning Bolts out. Like, that might be a realistic way to get back into this game. Yeah, let's do it. Badlands? Badlands. Here we go. Ooh. Let it resolve, opponent. It'll be fine. It will be fine, I promise. Luster Storm. They're all targeting the Dark Ritual. Okay. And we'll just let that stack clear. My opponent can counter my Veil of Summer. We'll play an Orcish Bowmasters backed by a Grief next turn. Are we questing? Oh, it's a legit Tarmogoyf. Haven't seen one of those in play in a while. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm very close to just using this to cast Sire of Insanity. So I probably don't use it right now. I think I Grief Pitch Animate Dead. And then if my opponent brainstorms in response, I try to get them with Bowboy. Oh. Okay. I could get cheeky and try to kill the Tarmogoyf, but my opponent has a line that just stops that on board, so I'm not going to try to get cheeky. I don't know whether or not my opponent would see that, but the risk reward is just not there. Like, I will just make an Orc army token that will beat a Tarmogoyf. Alright, so I'll have a 4/4 when that stack clears. Spell Snare, Lightning Bolt, Brazen Borrower. Unfortunately, my opponent just has like multiple things that deal with Orcish Bowmasters. So, do I want to protect the Bowmasters itself or my 4/4 token? I don't think I want my opponent to have Brazen Borrower, because I'm not too far away from Sire of Insanity. So my opponent's turn probably plays itself unless they drew something weird. Like they just play Delver, they hold up Lightning Bolt and Spell Snare. The attack with Tarmogoyf probably doesn't make a ton of sense. They're probably not the aggressor anymore. Oh, that's their most annoying draw for me. Sure. Punished for not getting basic Swamp last turn. So I presume they'll end of turn Lightning Bolt the Bowmasters. That's fine. Like, I will hope to reanimate that. We're just hoping to dodge Blind Flip Delver here. Let's see. Opponent reveals Ponder. I think after my opponent puts that Ponder on the stack, I can cast an Entomb. A little annoying that Delver blind flipped so that now Reanimate Bowmasters isn't just a thing that can answer it. Maybe I don't even cast the Entomb yet. They'd be happy if they countered it, right? Alright, that shuffled. This is gone, this is gone. They dropped their Spell Snare. Sure. Bad lands. 3, 4, 5 mana. I'm 1 short of Sire of Insanity. I don't think it's worth doing some crazy Entomb Faithless Looting line. Sire of Insanity doesn't line up super well versus these Tarmogoyfs. Holding back 1 Tarmogoyf feels weird to me. I'll take this damage. Sure. Stealthy Voidwalker. So if I block one of these, I take 3, 7, maybe 8 damage. Graveyard's off. Casting Sire of Insanity isn't game winning. I am okay throwing in the towel here. I think I'm okay with how I've boarded. Okay. This hand doesn't really do anything unless my Faithless Lootings hit well. I don't think I want to keep this on 7. This hand does nothing. It just takes some cards from my opponent's hand, but can't actually reanimate anything. We're on to 5. This is fine. I'm going to keep this. 1 Animate Dead goes back. And I guess an Unmask goes back. I believe that I am supposed to do an Upkeep Entomb to play around Daze. However, if my opponent has the same card they had last game, Soul Guide Lantern, I get bit in the butt for doing this. But this plays around Force of Negation and a Daze at the expense of not playing around a Singleton card. I think I want an Atraxa in graveyard. My opponent, unfortunately, kept 7 cards. Okay, there's a turn 1 Delver. We're hoping for any black card. There is a black card. So now I get to Grief, pitching Douthie Voidwalker, and attempt to Animate Dead. How much interaction do you have? A single Daze. I will take your single Daze. Animate Dead. Target Atraxa. We know my opponent has Tarmogoyfs over there. Okay. So. Instant. Sorcery. Want another basic? No. Land. I want to put Like, do I want to grief and take a Tarmogoyf from them, or do I want to pitch a Sire of Insanity into my graveyard? I think I want to put a Sire of Insanity into my graveyard. 1, 2, 3, 4. Done. Fetch. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't get the Faithless Looting because I took Reanimate. This is still fine. But I was supposed to take the Grief then. Grief, pitch, Dark Ritual, take one of the Tarmogoyfs. I hate resolving Atraxa on Magic Online. I find it very annoying because the cards jump around every time you click on one. Oh, I also just fucking misplayed again. I was supposed to reanimate my own Grief before my opponent draws another card. I don't think that mistake matters. I think the game is already largely just based around whether or not this card goes all the way. Never punished though, as I just drew Faithless Looting to make a much stronger play. Alright. Gain 6. Fetch. Badlands. Faithless Looting. Discard 1. Discard 2. I can even Grief first. Grief. Pitch Dark Ritual. And this gets to do the counterspell check. There is no counterspell. Take Tarmogoyf. Reanimate Sire of Insanity, which takes out my opponent's remaining 2 cards. Yep. So now my opponent is never going to have counterspells for my stuff. Yeah, that's fine. I guess Tarmogoyf could, in theory, get bigger than Atraxa, but, you know, Atraxa flies. I don't need to do anything with that Dark Ritual. The Animate Dead on Atraxa is slowing me down a little bit here. Opponent has Brazen Borrower, and I guess Murktide Regent's not actually great. Yeah, it's mostly Brazen Borrower. Like, if they Brazen Borrower, they can bounce my Atraxa to my hand and then make me discard it. I drew Daze, sure. Alright, and my opponent is willing to throw in the towel at that point. We end up with a 2-3 finish. Alright, how are we feeling at the end of the league? Okay. I would say nothing too unexpected happened in this league. Generally speaking, with Reanimator in Legacy, almost all of the skill in playing the deck comes with making your sideboard decisions, and that was something I was very unsure about in this league. Like, this deck has a creature-based plan that you can board in to deal with Graveyard Hate by ignoring it. It has a show and tell based plan that can do the same thing. You can opt to board in one or both of those. You can opt to board in answers. You can opt to board in answers while doing some of both of these. We didn't hit some of the 5-color control matchups or anything, or maybe a lands-based matchup where Magus and Moon could steal things. But it was a good option to have. I think this was the only sideboard card that we didn't actually bring in. As far as the main deck goes, again, I don't think you should be playing 61 cards. Hard for me to evaluate this. Like, it was never the best option for me to reanimate. I guess in thinking about playing around Caracas, like, I guess, you know, there's still the ward cost to think about. Maybe that was fine in some of the matchups that I boarded it out. I guess if we played against more Swords to Plowshare based matchups where like the Archon of Cruelties and Atraxas don't quite line up as well, like maybe Sauron is better there. But I don't know, I'd still be pretty tempted to get Atraxa. Alright, if you are a regular Reanimator player, sound off in the comments below what you think about this one and what your experiences have been. I very much would appreciate that. Folks, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and if you end up needing to get any paper Magic cards, check out Cool Stuff Inc. Use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your order and support this channel. I hope you all have a great rest of the day. See ya!